can I just say, they are accusing him of doing the exact same thing that they already did to him. In other words, he hasn't actually, he was president 4 years. Did he lock up Hillary Clinton? No. And you know what? I spoke to him about it. And he said, we live in the United States of America. I realize, like it sounds good, whatever, but we're not going to do that kind of stuff. And what did they do? What did they do? Think about it.
He's called me venomous.
We will fight back to your attempt to bring Trumpism to New York City.
He's called me disgraceful.
Of the fact that they stole the Supreme Court seat. An illegitimate president and an illegitimate member of the United States Supreme Court.
He's called me radical.
Listen, yes. We know he's crazy. Yes. We know he doesn't have a sound mind. Yes. We know he's out of control. Yes. We know he's losing it. Yes. We know his days are numbered and we will come together.
He's called me a racist.
We've got to stand up to an administration which is too male, too pale, and too stale. Too male, too pale, and too stale. Too male, too pale, and too stale.
So, I'm sorry. That to me sounds a heck of a lot worse than anything I saw at Madison Square Garden. I mean, hate to throw a dose of reality into all this, but look at what they have done. Look at the lawfare. Look at Letitia James. I mean, for goodness sakes, Letitia James, who, by the way, is going to get her, what handed to her just any day now. Unfortunately, the way they time these things, you got to get all the way to the actual election for it all to happen. I mean, they did this very deliberately, very, very deliberately. And Letitia James went into that courtroom there at the appellate court. Well, not her surrogate, because you see, they try to get smarter people at the appellate court. So Judith Vale went in, but she looked like a complete fool. I mean, the woman couldn't even get started.
May it please the court, Judith Vale for the New York Attorney General's office. All of the defendants repeatedly violated...
Ms. Vale, can you identify any previous case in which the Attorney General sued under Executive Law 6312 to upset a private business transaction that was between equally sophisticated partners, where the supposed victim had the ability and legal obligation to discover the allegedly misrepresented matters by conducting its own due diligence, where the supposed wrongdoer advised the supposed victim through written disclaimers to conduct its own due diligence and to draw its own conclusions, where the alleged misrepresentation almost entirely concerned inherently subjective valuations of properties and businesses.
Yes.
And where the victim never complained about any fraud in the transactional losses from it. Because I've gone through the cases which you've cited, and all of them always involved the consumer protection aspect. It involved protection of the market.
Several responses.
And I want to add to his question, and little to no impact on the public marketplace.
Yeah. Anyway, Letitia James is trying to find her new career path. Did you see this one? So the latest and greatest is that she's trying to actually run for mayor of New York City. So the idea that that would somehow be rewarded in any way, shape, or form is obviously quite terrifying. But nonetheless, New York Post reporting that a business advocate, a New York City business advocate, is out, like, it's stunning people, supposedly by somehow indicating that he'd be willing to endorse Letitia James for mayor there in New York City. I mean, this is really, you want to talk about being on the verge of Banana Republic stuff, ladies and gentlemen. Banana Republic stuff. They're going on about, we got to preserve democracy. We got to preserve democracy, that he's the reincarnation of Hitler. And it's like, hang on, okay. What exactly did you do to this guy? You went after him and after him and after him because you felt like you wanted to take him out. You sent this Letitia James, who's about to get her, as I said, handed to her any day now, except to get the exit plan of mayor. You sent this rabid woman out for a political vendetta against him.
I've taken on powerful interests like developers. I've taken on legislators. I've taken on landlords. I've taken on powerful interests in the city of New York because I believe in a good fight. And right now, what we need is someone who understands that you should not be afraid, not be fearful of Donald Trump. We should take him down. We should sue him all the way to bankruptcy. We should investigate his business interests. We should investigate his business holdings. We should investigate whether or not why he was once in debt and now in a position to purchase all of this property. We can do that because I've been trained to do that, and I will do that at the same time knowing the Office of Attorney General and its powers and its responsibilities and its duties. My name is Letitia James, and I plan on being the next Attorney General of the state of New York. God bless you and thank you.
I mean, who cares? Who cares if the Court of Appeals is going to throw out your court? You know, they need to disbar.
I think they're
They need to
unethical, but who
disbar.
knows?
I want to play
drill
this.
down on this question of retribution.
I want to play this next soundbite because you just heard earlier in the show from The View and Mika Brzezinski and MSNBC and everybody talking about retribution, how he's going to go after them. But listen to him here actually explain his viewpoint.
Because against your political opponents, because you've had opportunities to walk that back. And my question is this: are you prepared to say now that you will not use law enforcement to punish or prosecute your political opponents?
Excuse me. That's what they're using on me.
Okay, so your
Wait a
stance is that they started it.
before you start this.
Yeah, I got it.
Howie, that's what they're using on me. I've got DAs. I've got everybody. They look at me. There's never been anything like this. The biggest case was the one down in Florida, and I beat it 100%. I won the case because we had number one, a brilliant judge, and a judge that moved rather rapidly, and I won the case. By the way, Biden had almost the same case, but he didn't have the Presidential Records Act because he wasn't the president, just to finish. And he got off on the basis that he's incompetent, essentially that he's incompetent. And it was a strange ruling because they said, number one, he's incompetent, so he's not going to be, but the prosecutor actually said he's guilty, but he's incompetent. But they didn't say he couldn't be president anymore. That was his bigger problem for not being president. How can you not represent yourself in court because you're incompetent, but you're allowed to represent the United States of America? The whole thing is crazy. But no, they have weaponized government against me.
But are you willing to use the same tactics?
No, I don't want to do that because that's a bad thing for the country. I don't want to do that.
That's what's so amazing here. And yet you listen, again, we'll just listen to this lady, if you can stand her, trying to allege that he's going to do exactly that.
And guys, here's the warning. You all have set it up, but let me take it a step further, please, if I may. Mm-hmm. This is called normalization.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This is the descent into fascism, if we so choose. Normalizing January 6th, it's a day of love. It's a day of love. I'll say it again and again and again. Normalizing enemy from within. I'll say it again and again. I'll say it again and again until you get tired of it, until it's not so funny.
But wait a second. Haven't they just called him the enemy over and over and over and over again? Isn't it exhausting? Isn't it exhausting that we have to keep going back to the likes of World War II? Isn't it insulting that we have to go back to that? Yeah, you know what it is. And so when you go out to the swing states of Pennsylvania and Michigan and Georgia and North Carolina, people are exhausted by it. Come on, enough already. As this Pennsylvania told Mark Halpern, a political analyst on his podcast. Listen.
I can't. I think part of the reason why I'm being pushed towards Trump so strongly is that I find that the Democrats and the left just keep going straight to Hitler all of the time with everything, like it. And if it's not the left pushing Hitler, it's the right pushing Stalin. So it's like we're fighting World War II every single day for every single election. So it's so exhausting. I think it just it pushes me away from their position, and it's so hyperbolic that it makes it impossible to have good discussions. And I think it ruins.
Well said, right? It does ruin the discussion. It is so hyperbolic. It is so over the top. And when you keep saying that over and over again, at some point, people are like, okay, enough already, because we had him as president for 4 years. And guess what? The border situation was a little more under control. The inflation situation was under control. We were actually faring better as a nation. We weren't dealing with upwards of a 30% increase in electricity costs or travel costs or all the other costs, right? And so people actually look back to that and they say, gee, it wasn't that bad. They tried to scare us. And so maybe we made a different decision in 2020, but now you're looking at the polls and they're all going back to exactly how you would anticipate in this kind of environment. With all that said, I don't think come November 5th, we're out of the woods in any way, shape, or form.